everybody, welcome to Houdini Hangout. My name is Peter. I'm the host of this stream. Thanks for joining us this evening. Hope you're doing well. And so we're going to get up to some Houdini stuff tonight. Shocking. That's the name of the channel. So, I had a pretty interesting suggestion on the Discord to do this sort of, I don't know. It's a very abstract thing, but it's kind of based around people's like fear of like circles or like packed circles and things like that. Which is actually, hey Zach, how's it going, man? So I guess this should come with a little bit of a disclaimer that you might not like this if you have what is it? Shoot, I had the word up here somewhere. What was the word? Trypophobia, something like that. I closed my browser, so now I don't know where that went. Okay. Anyways, yes, I think it would be that trypophobia. Yep, for sure. Anyways, so that is the name of the effect or the name of the phobia that is kind of triggered by these images. But this guy online made some really neat examples of this, and I'll pull that up in a second here, and we can kind of take a look at that. I'll try to say the gentleman's name. It's Andrej Troha, which Lord knows I probably butchered that, but we'll take a look at his stuff here and see. Trypophobia, there we go. Thanks, Charlie. I accidentally opened up Photoshop too while I was just trying to do stuff. So let me just close that real quick. So anyways, yes. Here is just a little example of this. So warning alert. If you have trypophobia, you might not want to watch the stream tonight, I guess, but I don't know. Maybe you'll be interested still. So anyways, these are a bunch of different examples of what he put together. And, they're varying different effects and processes. Like, something like this might be hopefully what we can get to tonight. This one's really cool because it has this like super like viscousy kind of bubbly thing here, which might be a little more than we can get into tonight. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what we get into here. So yeah, there's lots of different things here. This almost reminds me of something from Guardians of the Galaxy 2, where they're on Ego's planet and there's all the little like that's more of a fractal thing, but this certainly reminds me of it. So there's multiple different levels of things that this gentleman Andrej is kind of put together here. I don't think this is Houdini. I mean, it could be. He doesn't say anywhere what he used to do it that I could find. He's got other stuff too. Actually, I should just kind of. Oh, that's kind of gross too. Nope, not seeing anything there. Any. I mean, it could be. You never know. Anyways, I thought it was, it's kind of an interesting little thing. Do some procedural geometry creation and stuff like that, and we'll kind of get into it. But there's a few different examples here. So that is what we're gonna try to mess around with tonight, and I'll keep that up for some reference. But anyways, yeah. So nice to jump in kind of by accident. Cool. Well, welcome, Powell. It's C4D. Cool. Awesome. Well, that's kind of my old tool of choice back, several years ago. And so we'll see what we can get up to here with Houdini today. So like I usually start off these streams, I always just say that if you have any suggestions or comments or anything like that, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm always kind of trying to keep my eye on that while we're going through things here. Happy to entertain any and all thoughts or comments related to Houdini. If you know, if you're having a question, of something that we're doing or why we're doing something a certain way, most likely someone else is. So feel free to ask the question. I'm not gonna, make you feel stupid or anything like that. If it's a basic question, we've all kind of had those questions before. So obviously those are welcome here. And yeah, if you see me doing something that's stupid, I only. Oh, cool. He followed me, but it opened YouTube as the first thing that popped up. That's awesome. Cool. Well, welcome to the welcome to the live stream. Um, cool. So anyways, yeah. Yeah, so if you if you think I'm doing something dumb, jump in, let me know. Happy to change course or kind of mess with stuff. There's obviously a million different ways to do things in Houdini, so it's always kind of nice to hear other people's feedback and opinions. I might not do everything that you suggest, but I will definitely listen to it. So I appreciate that. Cool. Okay. Well, I guess with that all out of the way, let's jump in, start doing some Houdini stuff. All right. So I think the first thing that the one thing that he's kind of got on all of these are these tubes. So maybe with the exception of this one here, they all have some sort of tube situation going on. So why don't we do that and get some tubes set up here? I think what I'm going to try to do first is something along the lines of this here, maybe. And then we can go from there, see what we can get up to. So let's do that. Yeah, cool. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is probably set up some sort of, this tube shape thing that's going to allow us to, have these different, these different heights and kind of scales of these tubes and stuff. So let's work on that. Now, the one thing I wanted to say too is I updated a little. Kind of reminds me of my old Houdini. Oh, my workspace here. Yeah. Well, if anybody has any suggestions, I'm always open to that too, I guess, for different Houdini setups. Yeah, it's always tricky to try to figure out what's the best for online. If anybody ever notices anything weird with my microphone or anything like that, feel free to drop that in the chat too. I updated something on my microphone, like software stuff today. So if it's the wrong mic or if I sound more distant than usual and it doesn't sound like it's coming, I think we're going through that microphone, but if it's not, let me know. I'm always happy to try to figure those things out because I hear things differently in my headphones than you might be hearing them. So anyways, just a little housekeeping there as well. I was trying to figure that out ahead of time and I'm like, I think everything's set up right. All right. Anyways, let us jump in here. Let's add a geometry node. I think, we'll see how we do this. Sounds good? Okay, great, Zach. Thank you. Appreciate it. I know you've listened to this before, so you should know what I sound like in the microphone at this point. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is, let's just say geo tubes first. I'm not sure if we'll do the whole thing in one or how we'll do this, but let's just kind of start breaking this up a little bit. So I think what I'm going to do to make these kind of all in a relatively straight manner is put them into a just have them on a grid. Honestly, I think we'll just have them all kind of coming at the camera, all going up in one direction. So that's a pretty straightforward thing to do. So let's do that. We'll do a grid. We'll drop that down and we'll do the classic scatter some points here. We're gonna get way too many scattered points, so let's reduce this to maybe, I don't know, 100. Yeah, that seems okay. Yeah, that's fine. The other thing I'm going to do is I think I'm going to turn the relax iterations maybe off so that it's not as uniform here. I think we're going to do this, and then we'll add a P scale into here. Now, I know that I could turn the relax. Let me see, actually, will this change it? I know that we can get the P scale out here from this. I'm going to pull up the geometry spreadsheet. But in this case, the p-scale is the same across all the points, no matter if I, relax them differently or not, which makes sense because normally you would want that so that they're evenly spaced. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to turn this off. Let this be just randomly generated. I'm going to turn off the p-scale here. And what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to add is pasting Instagram links allowed here. I think YouTube is weird about posting links. If you want to do that, you can always join the Discord server and HoudiniHangout.com. There's a Discord link there. This live chat is fed there as well. So you can always jump into the live chat on Discord, and that obviously you can post anything. That's what I'm actually keeping track of here. And that's the fastest way. If you wanted to comment something, that would be by far the fastest way to do it. So feel free to jump over there if you'd like to for posting links or whatnot. That's always welcome. Okay, cool. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. Let's do a attribute adjust node. I always like these. They're nice and easy to kind of just set up. We don't have to do anything too crazy. It's not like we're setting up a custom VOP or anything like that. All right, so let's just do let's do a noise attribute on this. And I'm going to grab this so we can see it. Let's do the background with like a dark gray here. And this is just visualizing this value. And it should be, I think, between 0 and 1. So we're going to be seeing that. Let's change the element size here a little bit. And we should be able to, I'm also going to change the points here. So geometry point size, that should be what I need. I usually like to go up to like 6 if I want to see these points. Okay, so now I could hopefully see the scale of this noise a little bit better here. So let's do that. I don't want the minimum scale to be 0. Oh, I see. Yeah, that must be what it was. It was the, oh, thanks, Aunt. I appreciate that. I do my best to try to help people learn. So I appreciate the compliment, and yeah, no problem. Glad to be on here streaming away. All right, so let's do 0.5. That'll be kind of maybe our low end of things, and then maybe for the max value we'll do 1.5. I mean, it really, I guess, doesn't matter what you have here because we're going to use this to copy points onto, or to copy the geometry onto, right? The tubes that we're going to make. The easier way to kind of see this might be to just take a sphere, a primitive sphere, and just copy to points, right? So we copy this to points, and we can see obviously what we're doing here, like that. So that'll give us a little sense of our scale, and give us, maybe a sense of how big these things are going to be. We'll maybe bring these down a little bit. We don't want to go too crazy. And then the upper size, maybe in and around there. Like, I kind of feel like that's nice. Like if I was looking at those as tubes coming up, that seems pretty good. So let's do that. And then we can also do, we can kind of play around with this a little bit to see how we might want to change this. Like, right, we could make this very like uniform noise, or we could roughen it up a bit as well. So let's maybe do 1.5. That's kind of maybe an interesting spot. So it's not completely random, has a little bit of structure to it maybe. I don't know. I'm just going to kind of play with this a little more maybe. Yeah, maybe there. Okay, whatever. Doesn't really matter. So we've got these spheres, right? And I'm going to turn down the number of scattered points, maybe 75, maybe even less. We'll see. Hey, Crossfader, welcome, man. Okay, so maybe let's do something like that. And what we can actually do here is we can use a relax node. Here, we can do a point relax. And the interesting thing that we can do here is, I guess we're going to need a normal attribute for these as well. So I could do this. I think if I do a normal here up above this, that's going to give us our normal, obviously, on the grid. Then our points should also have normals as well. And then our relax should be done in that same space. And there we go. We've got some relaxed spheres with their kind of in their normal direction. Now we could also do these in 3D space, which fine. That seems to be fine. And let's see if we just up this a little bit more, where we're going to go with this here. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. So we could go up into that space. Maybe we'll do like 80 just to give ourselves some gaps here. And maybe we'll relax it just a little bit more. I think if we do this, it's going to push them out a little bit further. So then there we go. Maybe something like that's cool. I don't know. You can just kind of mess around with stuff here. What if we turned off relax in 3D space? Yeah, that does seem to be kind of helping a little bit here. Let's just up the iterations a little bit just to make sure that we're getting nice separation between all these spaces. And maybe we'll turn this. Yeah. Okay. Well, you can play around with that, get the spacing the way you'd like it. You can kind of mess around with that however you may see fit. But we've got these spheres scattered, right? So really the reason I'm using this sphere is just to give myself a visualization of how these points are looking, right? Because if I was just looking at it in this case, like that doesn't really tell me a whole lot, right? I can see that there's different float values on here because I'm visualizing them, and I can see that they're showing different that they're all different P scales, right? That's what we're visualizing here, and I can see that in my geometry spreadsheet, but it doesn't really tell me much of anything. So adding just a sphere like this is gonna help me out a little bit. Now, what we can do then, similarly, is we could do a tube, right? We could do a tube polygon, and we could use that instead. So we could clip that in like that, and then now we've got a Oh, Charlie, yeah, great question. If you go to the link on the Discord server, and there is a channel that's called HH Hip Files, Houdini Hangout Hip Files, and if you go there, there's a Google Drive link that has all of the files from the streams on there. I do my best they're just labeled by dates. And if you know the date of the stream, you know the date of the file. So hopefully that's easy enough to kind of follow along with. But yeah, that would be the best way to go about doing that. So sorry if I'm a little fast for you, but yeah, there's obviously I do try to keep these within a reasonable amount of time. But yeah, if you feel like you miss anything, you can always ask a question too. Feel free. All right, so we've got our spheres here and we've got our tube. Now the difference here, I think you can see, is that this tube isn't quite the right size. So if we do a radius scale of 2, I think that will fit it correctly. So that's good. But let's adjust this a little bit. So let's give it a height of, I don't know. Well, let's just give this a height for right now of, let me just think about this. Let's do a height of, I don't know, maybe 5. It's kind of that's a good height. I feel like it's got a decent bit of scale there. And if we look at this, we're going to see, now we've got an issue though. These are all laying down because when we have a normal value that's implied here, that's actually going to be looking to go along this Z axis, right? So I think I can actually make that bigger. Sorry. Guides. There we go. I'm going to make that a little bigger. How about that? So there's our little nomen down there in the corner. And so anything that's along this Z axis is going to be what's going into now our up axis, because our Z axis is our normal direction on these points. So if we have a normal described by these points, that is going to be the Z axis of whatever's being copied into it. So here, I'm just going to say the orientation should be along the Z axis, and you'll see that this will now jump up like that. And so these will be going up in a direction now. So that's good. That seems to be helpful. I'm going to turn off the normals. We don't really need to visualize those anymore. So that's good. Now, another thing that we're going to be running into here, it looks like, is, well, actually the P-scale is doing kind of a nice job of this already. We're getting the smaller they are, the smaller the radius of these tubes are, the shorter they're going to be, which is because we're using a P-scale, it's going to be scaling everything down like that. So what we might actually want to think about now that I'm just kind of working through this is we might want to actually go with a scale attribute instead of a P-scale, which will allow us to differentiate between the Y scale and the X and Z scale for these. So that could be something nice to do, and then we can add in even more noise, right? Because what I always think with these types of things is that the more randomness you can get in here, like having skinny ones that are tall and tall ones that are short, the more randomness you can kind of build into your scene, the better, I think. So let's try that. And I think what we could do, I'm just trying to think of what's going to be the best way of doing that. I think, let's try this. Let's try, instead of an attribute adjust float, let's try an attribute adjust vector. I mean, we can do this all through code and stuff, but let's just try this. And let's do a scale attribute here. If you're ever curious about the attributes that are available for this copy to points that it'll kind of look for, you can look in like these. I think if we hit Alt-E, there's going to be a whole list of things here. These are all things that it's going to be maybe looking at, like scale and orient and things like that. But if we open this up, the copy to points, there should be this, I think, instancing point attributes, if I'm remembering correctly. Yep. So these are all going to be attributes that that it looks at, that the copy to points looks at. And really any instancing, if you're using an instancer in LOPS or whatnot, it's going to look for these types of attributes. And so it tells you kind of what they do and how they work. So you've got your P scale, which is uniform scale, which is a float 3, like a vector, and that's non-uniform scale. And it tells you the priorities here as well. So there's lots of, so if you go to the Houdini Hangout.com, you can find an invite to the Discord server right there. So feel free to do that and jump in. I see even it looks like somebody's joined since the beginning of this stream, so that's cool. So yeah, anyways, yes, people welcome there. Free invite. Yeah, good. Feel free to jump in there. So anyways, this tells you the priorities of things. So for example, like the pivot. Then we have transform, and then if transform doesn't exist, use orient, and if orient doesn't exist, then use these things. So it kind of goes through all the different things. And we have, so none of these things exist up to this point where it says orient the copy instance using N as the plus Z axis and up as the plus Y axis. Now we don't have an up as the plus Y axis, so that will give some ambiguity to this. We could have some flipping and moving in weird ways. I don't think we're going to run into any problems because we have tubes, but something to certainly consider. So anyways, so what we need is this scale attribute, and that's going to be a vector. In this case, let's just do the X and the Z. And let me just make sure that this is actually going to be setting it. Let's do noise. Okay, cool. So this is definitely doing what we want it to. It's not setting this, we haven't set the scale yet. So actually what we could do is we could have two of these. We could have one that's going to do exactly this, which is going to randomize this value. In fact, we might do this as a multiply here. And this, we could just say set always, and we could just do it as a constant. So we can just set this to be 1, 1, 1, like this. We could also do a create attribute. There's many different ways to set these values up. And I'm going to make sure this sets all of them. So here we have a scale of 1, 1, 1. So that's going to be even across all of these. And if we come down here now we're just multiplying the X and Z by random values. Now, the only thing we might want to do, yeah, the only bad thing about this is that this is going to randomize it differently there. So maybe we should just do this in a do this in a VOP. So let's do that. Does I found overlap equals 1 work here? No, what you're thinking about there, Lucas, is with the found overlap. That is a cool thing. I think that's for, I think that would be for simulations, right? For like RBD sims and things like that. Like if you were doing those types of things, I think that's where that attribute would come in, helpful. So okay, so let's scrap these here. Let's do a point VOP, and we'll wire this in here. And let's just come in here and we'll do some different things. Let's do a, it doesn't really matter here. We can just do, I guess, a turbulent noise. That's fine. We could do 1D noise, and we're going to do, I guess, simplex is good. And so the position is going to be this here. And what we could do is we could do a vector, or no, sorry, float to vector. And what that's going to allow us to do is wire multiple floats in and create a vector. And then to export that, we're going to do a bind export. And we're going to wire this in. And this is going to be our scale attribute. So whatever we put into this, these floats are going to define our scale. So we can do this. We can set our X and our Z to be the same. And then we could do the same kind of idea here, use the same position, grab a noise, and then set a different offset here as well. So we could just give it a little offset there. We're going to get different scale values for that. Now let's see here. What are we going to do? We want to fit these values, and let me just see what we've got here. So the scale is between like, it seems like it's between 0.2. Okay. So let's see if we can do this. Can we do a fit range here? Can we do this with a vector? I think we can. Okay. So let's do this. We'll do negative 0.2 and 0.2. And I think that's going to get us all into the positive now. I think. Oh, not 1.2. 0.2. There we go. And I think that's going to get us all into the positive now, more or less. So that's good. And now we could kind of adjust this a little bit and mess around with these values here. So let's go back and look at what we had with our float here. We had 0.3 and 0.65. And so actually probably what we'd want to do is do this for each of these now that I'm thinking of it. So let's take this out here. We'll actually wire it in over here. And this will allow us to fit it for just these ranges, and we can kind of adjust it either way. So we'll say negative 0.2, 0.2. And this is going to be our X and our Z scale. So what we can do here is instead of having the noise there right now, sorry, I'm just going to kind of jumping around a little here. Let's just do a constant on the Y value, and we'll set that to 1. And so now we're going to have a 1 value for all of our Y scale, and then the other ones are going to be matched. They're going to be fit within a range. And so these we can actually set to be the exact same range here, which was 0.3 and 0.65. So let's do the same thing here. We'll do 0.3, 0.65, and now those should hopefully be in a nice range, and we're binding that to scale. Let's take a look at that then. And so let's take that and we'll wire that into the same relax. Now, is this going to work though? Yes. So what we're going to need is actually we're going to need both of those now that I'm realizing, because we're using the point radius for this. And so we're going to need to do that as well. So let's have both of those, I guess. So let's do this. So we'll do this. This will be both our scale. So we have a scale and a P scale. And then before we get to the copy to points, we could actually just do an attribute delete and get rid of that P scale. Now, what I'm actually realizing is that I told it to do it in the wrong axes, because I'm thinking that this should be in the in the X and the Z, but really it should be the X and the Y, and the Z is it going up and down. So let's just adjust that. That's an easy enough thing. So we'll just say create scale, just so we know what that's for. And here we go. We're going to change this over so that this one is the Z and this one is the X and the Y. So let's do that. Cool. I think that should be right. There we go. All right. So now all of them are the exact same height, because we have that all normalized, but the radius of them is going to be adjusted by that. And we could also do this as well. So we have this attribute adjust float. Another thing we could do here too, now that I'm thinking of this, is we could bind in an import here. There we go. Actually, yeah, because we don't have p-scale in this list, right? No. So we'll do p-scale here. And what we could do is we can actually bind this in and just put this right into the first two values. So that could kind of work for us. Let's do that and that. There we go. So now our p-scale exactly matches that. So we can get rid of this turbulent noise and we can keep the fit for this one. So we'll get rid of that. Sorry, I'm doing this all kind of on the fly. So just thinking through things as we go here. So we've got our bind coming in. We're using our constant right now. So really all we're doing right now is just mapping the p-scale here to these two float vectors and then binding that to scale. And so therefore our relaxation is going to be done the exact same p-scale as those two X and Y scale are going to be. So that's going to make sure that these are exactly right. You saw them overlapping a little bit. Now they aren't. So that's good. And what we can do here is now we can come in, we could take this fit and we can change this destination min, destination max. We can actually wire this into the Z. And now this is going to adjust the Z scale in this case, and that's along the normal. So that's up and down, right? So, oh, cool. You're very welcome. I wouldn't be able to say your name because it has some letters in it that I don't know how to say, but that's really cool. I'm glad that you've been learning a lot. That's great. I'm glad to hear that. Feel free to if you're looking for suggestions for things to learn about or whatever, feel free to jump into the Discord and put a suggestion in there or whatnot. So always happy to see what we can help people out with. So cool. I'm really glad. That's incredibly nice to hear. So we've got all of these now, and now we can adjust the scale of these, right? So we could add some of them so they're taller. Hey, Kumar, welcome to the stream. Welcome to the stream. Okay, so we've got these set up. The only other thing you might want to do here is add a match size here. And we'll do this to minimum on, not on the y-axis, because again, we've got these laying down. So we want to do this to the minimum on the z-axis, maybe. Am I thinking of that right? Yes, I am. So now that'll put all of these exactly on the same plane here. So they're all sitting kind of on the ground plane. So the reason for that is that we're looking in the positive z. Hey, Prince, welcome. Yeah, I think I remember chatting with you online. Very nice. Nice to have you in the chat. So we've got this here, and this is going to be basically our ground position. So this is the direction of our normals on our points. And so when we copy it, that's what we're getting here. And if you're not used to using VOPs, or you haven't done this before, there's a nice little trick here that we can make this easier than having to jump. No, not too many silly questions. I enjoy the questions are the point, man. That's great. I'm always glad to help people out. So if you're new to VOPs or you haven't done a lot with these, I wonder if the UV layout set to P instead of UV would be a nice way to pack these tubes. Yes, I see what you're saying. Yeah, Zach, that's an interesting thought. It would be good for packing circles, but since these are tubes, you could probably manipulate it in a way that would allow you to do that. But with the UV layout, like where it lays out the UV for you automatically, or like packs it in for you, you run into the problem with, or you would have it where you would use the polygons, right, as the things that are going to be kind of spacing things out for you. But in this case, when we look down at them, they're going to be open. So the polygons are actually in this axis, right? Instead of really like in this axis, they're almost non-existent. So I feel like you might run into some problems there. You could probably, I mean, let's be honest, you could figure out a way to do that. I just wonder if you would really, it would be a lot of work to do that. But it's a great idea, and that's a great node for packing things. I always forget about that. So thank you for bringing that up. If you have like a really complicated shape that you need to pack into another shape, and you can, and if it's something that you can like make a representation in 2D, you could use the packing from the so yeah, what you could do, okay, here's an option. You could do a bunch of random spheres, project those into UV space, and then like use the UV layout tool to like kind of rearrange them in that space, and then extrude up, and then you take the top and bottom off. So that would probably be another way you could do this. Yeah, for sure. It's a different method, but certainly could work as well. Yeah, there's always a million ways to do everything. So, but that's a good one. That's a great suggestion, because if you started with the shape that you're trying to pack, like a sphere or a circle, I mean, then you would be able to get those to all scatter out in the UV space, then extrude them up, take the top and bottom off, and you got tubes again. So yeah, there's so many ways to do all this stuff. It's crazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to middle click on this and say promote parameter. So we're going to do both of those. And what that's going to do is promote these parameters up. So now you can see here I have my minimum and maximum here right at this value. And so I can kind of play around with this right here, which is really kind of nice. We can obviously set these up. So probably the best thing to do here would be to sort of set it like that maybe, and that would be pretty good. And then the other thing that we could maybe do, we could jump into this and look at our turbulent noise. And maybe what we'd want to do is set maybe the frequency. You could also do that. You could middle click on this and promote the parameter. Maybe the roughness would be another one we could promote. And so you can obviously do this for more things, but this will just allow us to kind of, we can kind of mess around with this in a few different ways, right? We could have a really smooth noise like this, where it's just like 0.1 and they're kind of like wavy, or we could give it a little bit more noise like this. Lots of different options here. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll do like 2, and then we can adjust the roughness as well. So we could give it a little more roughness and actually maybe bring that down. Cool. There we go. So we've got some tubes set up here. Great. So we've got our tubes set up, and there's a few different things that we're probably going to want to do here. So the next thing we'll probably want to do here is add some thickness to these, right? Because if we look at these, they've got a nice little thickness parameter to them, so that would be helpful. So let's do that as well. So let's take that, and I think the best way of doing this is going to be in a for each loop, I think, because we could then adjust some of the thickness of these and not have them all be exactly the same and give them some variation. So let's try that out. Another thing I'm gonna also try out is maybe adding a little more geometry around these. So let's do this to maybe like 48, something like that, just to make them a little smoother. That might actually be too much. We could probably do 36 and be fine. Yep, that's pretty good, I think. So let's do 36. Feel good about that. So, okay, so let's do a for each. And we'll say for each connected piece. Now this has a nice little bonus for it, so that when we connect it, it's going to also add this connectivity attribute in between here. And what this does, it's going to give us a class for every single one of our different connected geometries. So that means that each of these is going to be seen as a piece by this for each loop. So it's going to loop over these pieces, and there's 80 of them in here because I think we have 80 points, sure do. So you can see here on our for each, we have merge 80, so that means it goes 80 times through it. So what I often do is I'll just take, I'll come in here, maybe I'll just do a single pass for right now. This is just one of them, just to kind of make it a little quicker. And we could do a thicken. Let's do our labs thicken. That's probably fine. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So this is just basically taking a shell geometry and it's going to randomly give it, or not randomly, it's going to give it that thickness, right, based on this depth. And as we adjust this here, we'll see that we can make this a thicker or thinner, shell basically that we've now created out of from this this surface that has no thickness to it. Another thing I'm noticing is that a couple of these are still interpenetrating. So let's just maybe push these apart a little more like that, just to make sure we're not getting anything too weird. There's lots of different ways we can control these, right? So we can do this with the point radius scale. We can do this with the number of iterations. There's lots of different ways to do this. So let's just double check here. We are still having a little intersection there. Okay. Hopefully that's enough. I think that's good now. Great. All right. So we have our thicken, and if we do for each here and we turn off the single pass, we'll see that we now have all of these thickened. But what I'm thinking of is that it'd be really nice to not have these all perfectly uniform. Again, noise is always, randomness is always adds detail to these types of things, right? So let's try that. Let's try to do a loop that has different noise for each of these things. And if we want to do that, we're going to come in here and create an import, this meta import node. And this is going to be really important because this is going to allow us to change this on each loop. What we can see here is this adds a few attributes. If we select this block begin and we look at our geometry spreadsheet, you'll see there's nothing here, but if we go over to detail, we can see that we have an iteration, a number of iterations, and a value. So we have an iteration, and that's usually what I use. So what we could do here, we could do a few things here. We could drive this value based on the iteration, right? So we could just write a little expression in here, and that'd probably be the easiest thing to do in this case. So let's do that. So what we can do here is for the depth, we could say, let's see, random, and I believe that's gonna, sorry, I just want to look and see if, okay, cool. I was thinking that there's a different, there's two different ones. And this one always gives the same result if you put the same value in. So that's fine. So if we do random and we do that based on the, based on a detail attribute, so we're going to type detail. This is going to grab the detail attribute from that other node. And you can see right here, we've got, it gives us kind of a little pop-up here. And we can see that we tell it detail, then we give it a surface node, the name of the attribute, and the attribute index. Now the index is going to be 0 because it's just going to be the first. There's no other index for it. And the name is going to be iteration. So let's find that surface node, and we're just going to say like slash like that. So we'll do quote .. slash. That just basically means go up one level from this node and look for another node. And I'm just going to type for like this. That's going to bring up the for eaches, and we want to do the begin one, metadata one. We could rename that whatever, but for right now, that's going to be fine. And that's the node that we're going to be looking for. So let's see, can I do Alt E? Yep, that should bring this up. Cool. So this will hopefully be a little easier for you to see. So that's our first part. And then we're going to do the second part is going to be here. We need the attribute name, which is going to be iteration, sorry, and then quote, and then it's going to be the 0 index. So now we're going to get a random value based on the iteration. Now this is going to be between 0 and 1, but we can apply this and see what happens here. And you can sort of see the idea that's happening already. Now, we've got these all quite a bit too big, it looks like now, because we're getting, most of them are way too big. Some of them are okay. Other ones are way underneath, but that's okay. So what we could do here is we could do because this is giving us a random number between 0 and 1. So we could say fit 0, 1. And now we're going to put all of that information into another function just to help us kind of reduce where this is going to go between. So now fit 0, 1 is saying take any number that's between 0 and 1 and fit it to these next values. So we're going to just put a comma here, and then we're going to add our new minimum, which is going to be, I don't know, we'll do 0.05 maybe, and then we'll do 0.15 like that. And there we go. Now, it doesn't look like this is randomizing in my eye. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Let's give this a little bit stronger value, maybe just to double check. So I don't know if it is or not. Okay, so we are getting a value of that. Okay, so it looks like it's working. Okay, yep, I think it's working. I'm going to say yes, it's working. So we'll do Alt-E. We'll just adjust this top end here to be like 0.35 maybe, hit apply. Then maybe the small size, we'll just do 0.1, apply. I'm just going to play around with this a little bit, see what values work the best here. Yeah, I think that's right. It's kind of hard to tell. I don't think that's properly doing it. That's okay. That's okay. What we could also do. All right, that's an option, but let's delete that for right now, and let's set this back to its default of 0.1. So what we could also do, since for some reason that's not working and I don't really feel like debugging that code, is we could just also do a attribute adjust float. Hey, Zerdart, welcome. Sorry if I missed your chat from before there, a couple minutes ago, but welcome. All right, so let's set this to be, we'll just call this thickness. And that's an arbitrary name. Doesn't matter what we call that. I'm just going to give this another noise value, I guess, is fine. And we'll see what we set this to. So maybe it'll be 0.01, and we'll set the max value to 0.15. Or maybe this is 0.5, like this. Okay. So what we can do here is we can set these on points, right? So these are going to be point attributes. Oh, sorry. I'm going to do this on the copy to points up here. My bad. So the reason I'm going to do that is because that's going to then copy this same attribute to all of these. If we look here, we're going to see the same thickness on each of these values. So each point will have its own thickness. That'll get copied to the overall geometry here. Then those will get segmented with this connectivity. And then when we come down here, we can do an attribute promote. And what we'll do is we'll take our thickness and we could go from point to detail. And that's easy enough. And then each of these should have their own detail value that's going to set their thickness. So like if we look at these spheres here, or these tubes, we can see that they all have different thicknesses. You know, you see them all change there, right? So every time we kind of scroll through this, we're seeing different thicknesses for one of those tubes. So here now we're going to promote that thickness to a detail attribute. So they're all just one attribute that we can call. And now we can just here, instead of saying do a random function here, we already did the randomization up on all of our points. So we know that those are all nicely randomized. So here we can just type in detail and we can say what the node is going to be, which actually I'm just going to set that as a null here just to make a nice thing. And I'm just going to say, we'll say get thickness like that, just to give ourselves something a little easier to find. Let's actually do this. I'm going to delete this channel for right now and say 0.1. And then I'm going to just do Alt E. That's going to bring up our editor, which will then make this a little easier. So let's set this to be, go back here and say detail. And we're going to do the same thing we did before, except we're just going to say get thickness. Now, the reason I put that all in capitals is so that it comes up to the top of that list, makes it a lot easier to find. So there's our get thickness. We're going to say comma. The attribute we're going to look for is, again, thickness. And then we're going to say 0. And so now when we hit apply here and accept and go down to our thickness, these should each have that thickness value applied to them. And it does look like that randomness has now been properly applied. I see some really thin ones. I see some really thick ones. And now this is going to easily adjust that. So we could say 0.3 here. And now those are going to get really thick. Some of them are going to stay thin. So that's going to be much better. Let's say 0.15, something like that. Great. Okay, that looks great. So now we've got our tubes set up here. We've got a nice, I mean, again, there's a million ways you could do all this stuff. Just trying to give you some ideas on how you might attack some of these different ideas and concepts. So actually we didn't really need this metadata, so we can get rid of that. That's okay. We don't really need that because we ended up going a different route. So there's always multiple ways of doing things. And if something's not working, give it a second, think about it, and then, see if you can go a different direction with it. Okay, so we've got all these tubes. Let's take a look at the next thing that we might want to mess with here. So probably the best thing to do would be, let's see. I think what I'm going to do is let's do a little bit of just a little bit of a bevel on these edges, just for visual sake. You could, like, what you could do too, you could convert these into like VDBs or something like that if you wanted to, and then roughen them up that way. That's a possibility as well. I think the easiest way for right now is just to do a quick bevel. So let's do that. So we'll do a poly bevel here after this. What I'm going to do is use an exclusion to say ignore the flat edges, and we can give it a little distance here. Well, that's interesting. Why is it doing that? Are those not... Sorry, just going to investigate something here. Why are we getting that? Let's do like 45 here, just out of curiosity. Okay, there we go. I just had that too low still, shockingly. This maximum angle was actually too small, and so it was still beveling even these sides. So I just set it up to like 45. Gives us a nice value to be able to just bevel those edges. And you're going to want to probably give it a few more divisions. In this case, I would say maybe 3 is going to be fine. I don't know, just kind of a guess. But that gives us a nice little bevel on all of these tubes. So, okay, so we've got that going. I think what I'm going to do as well here is, since we have these tubes like this, I am going to make a null here, because I think we're going to, I'm just going to call this thin tubes. Color this yellow. This one gets a yellow as well. I like the middle nulls to be yellow. Don't ask me why. It's just what my brain does. We can also turn off this visualization. I think we're visualizing class. We can turn that off if we want to. So I think what I'm going to do for this in-between kind of foam is... I think I'm going to do that with solid tubes. So let's mess around with that. So here I've got this poly bevel. Let's do a null at the bottom here. We're just going to call this out thick tubes. It's the end of the chain, so it's a green one. Okay, so we've got our tubes. Let's now say, let's add another geo node here. I call this geo, what do we want to call this stuff in between? Foam, I guess. Like, it's kind of like, yeah, let's call it foam, I guess. Geo foam. And we'll do a green there. And so let's try this. Let's go into here and let's do an object merge. You can see that we are seeing the highlight of those other, or the kind of the ghost of those other objects, and that's cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the previous tube object here, and I'm going to get the thin tubes. Wow, the word thin just did not look right to me at all. That was really weird. Actually, the really nice thing about this with this, with using this inner extrusion kind of method with the thickness is that we've got the outside shell shape still, which is kind of nice. So this we're going to say, I'm just going to call this get thin tubes, not tubs. That one gets a red. I like my object merges to be red. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a polyfill on these, and that should fill in our tops. It does. Nice. I'm going to say a triangle fan for these and uncheck the deform patch. The reason for that is that this can actually give you this little surface offset, which is kind of wacky. And I don't want that. So let's just turn that off. Let's turn off deform patch. So now we have these. And I think what I'm going to do, I think this will do it. And maybe not. Who knows? So this is all, I'm just making it up as I go along here. So let's do VDB from polygons. I think we're going to mainly be able to use VDBs here to kind of do our bidding. So, okay, so we've got VDBs. We've got a reasonable voxel size. These are 0.1. That's pretty good. Maybe we'll say like 0.08 and just get a little more detail there. I don't want to go too crazy. I don't want to make too many voxels, but yeah, I mean, it feels like that's probably fine. Honestly, probably 0.8 is fine too. Okay, so we've got our VDB from polygons. This is a distance VDB. And so what we can do is we can do SDFs now. And these VDB SDFs are the ones that we want to focus on. And what I'm going to do is do a reshape SDF. And what I can do here is I can dilate this and I can offset it. So let's see if we like dilate this a little bit, make them a bit bigger, something like that maybe. Let's try, I don't know. Let's try 8. And then let's do a SDF, smooth SDF. I always get the order of those words wrong. This is a mean value smooth. So I think I'm actually going to go Gaussian because that's going to blur this even more. So let's try that. And then let's do another VDB reshape. Reshape SDF. And now let's erode this. And we could probably, let's see, I'm going to link these together. So I'm going to copy this parameter. I'm going to paste a relative reference here. We're going to get this back down to this value. Yeah, I kind of like what's going on here. This is fun. Now we're having fun, everyone, just for the record. Yeah. I like this. So we're getting these nice kind of shapes that are going to follow these along. They kind of have these smooth edges and all this type of stuff. But yeah, we're getting somewhere nice, somewhere that I am enjoying now. So let's do this instead. Let's try this at 10. Okay, there we go. So the reason that having a little bit more offset here is going to help is that it's going to make sure that it closes up that hole. And maybe we want to just do an offset -1, maybe just to keep it a little bit more. I don't know. We're just going to play around with this a little bit. That's really smoothing it out. Maybe that's too much. These iterations are going to be a little finer control. Cool. Yeah, I kind of like that. I think that's interesting. So let's do this. Let's take, just thinking. Okay, so we have these thin tubes, and this is going to be really helpful for us because we have this VDB from them, right? And what we could actually do here is maybe the better thing to do would be to scale these down a little bit in our y-axis. So let's do that. Let's do a transform here. And let's scale these down just a little bit. The reason I'm thinking that might be a good idea, if I turned on my display flag, I think this will be a good idea because we'll be able to just reduce these a little bit, maybe like to 95. So now when we do our VDB, it's going to be a little lower. When we look at this last step here, those tubes are going to kind of stick up above it a little bit. And I think that's nicer to me in my mind. So we've got that. The other thing then we can do is we can take this and we can just say, give it like a null or something here and say, we'll just call this VDB, or we'll say, yeah, we'll do VDB tubes, something like that. Then we know that this is, this is going to be our reshaping of those tubes. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this lower down here. I'm going to have this is going to be our VDB short tubes. So this is going to be where our tubes start out. And then I think we'll do the same thing here. We'll just duplicate this. And I'm going to get a tall version of it without the transform. So we'll call it, actually, I'll make it actually taller. So why don't we do that? And we'll scale it in, maybe move it down a little bit and scale it. So just so that it's kind of going past the overall top and bottom of this thing. So we're basically going to be Boolean this out so that we can cut it out of here. So let's do that. Let's do 1.25 maybe scale. Let's see where that puts us. Okay, good. And then maybe we'll, okay, I think what I'm going to do is we've got this transform set up here. I'm going to do a match size. And now this is where a match size actually feels like a match size, because we're going to throw this in here. And now what we can do is we can center the bounds on that other object there. So here's our short tubes, right? Or these are our short tubes here. And then you can see from this, those are going to, I can just do it this way. Those are going to be our tall tubes. So you can see that these are our standard like rendered tubes. These tall ones are going to be what's actually cut out from that kind of mass that we're creating. And it goes above and below those short tubes. So it's going to be sort of centered on the VDB that we created because that VDB is sort of centered on those tubes. So anyways, we're basically just using this match size to get the bounds of those short tubes and then centering the taller tubes on them just so that we have it cutting out the top and bottom. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully I'm not just rambling on to no one. Seems like we're all good still, but anyways, so that's going to be our tall tubes. And of course they're in the middle, so they get yellows. Okay, so we've got our taller tubes here. Cool. And what we can do is we can do a VDB SDF subtract. So what this is going to do is going to take this VDB here, and we're going to do a difference or a subtraction from this VDB here. So let's take a look at what that looks like. And there we go. We've got some tubes that are getting cut out, which is pretty interesting. Getting somewhere here. And so the other thing too, just to think about with all of this, is if you wanted that surface to be different, like to not so closely resemble the height of the tubes that we originally had, you could do some randomization to those and scale them differently, right? Or have a different set that was going to define in those same positions, have a different set of tubes that you scatter that then define the height of this sort of intermediate surface or whatever. The other thing we might do here is not have this, maybe have this go -2, so it doesn't crunch down quite as much. Sort of the question here is like, how much do we want it to go over these outer edges, right? I think that's kind of an interesting question. So like the more you have this erode, not go all the way back down. So right, we're dilating it by 10, but we're only eroding it by 8. So depending on how much you want that offset to be, that could certainly give you more or less of this. Like, so there at that point, like -3 is going to be a nice, it's going to basically keep this completely covered up. Now, this is a fairly low resolution VDB. Actually, what's going on there? Do we have? We do have one there. Okay. Interesting. So let's give this a little more height then. 0.5 maybe, or maybe even higher. Maybe we'll just do 2 and just let it go all the way through like that. Let's see. Yep. There we go. So, it depends on how we want this to exactly be, right? And if we wanted to reduce this down, this is going to change the smoothness of this, right? So we're inherently going to get some smoothness from this based on just the just on this erosion and dilating, basically. So from this to this, we kind of naturally get a little bit of contact here. Then we do a little smooth. Then when we come back down like this, we're going to get, naturally get something like that. So, there's certainly lots of things that we could mess around with here. Maybe do that. Cool. So yeah, lots of randomization, lots of things that we can do here, but now we're starting to get, I think, something that's sort of interesting looking. Cool. So we've got this VDB surface. Let's actually do this. Let's take this. I'm going to take the voxel size of this, copy this parameter, paste the relative reference over here so that these are both now linked. So now we have these two things that are linked together. And if we look here, our voxel sizes should be the same, 0.08. We come down here, there's 0.08. Now there are some things on this VDB combined, like the resampling B to match A, that will do the resample for us and make sure that they match each other. So that's something as well. Now, before I go through all of this stuff, maybe we should check on this use world space units. And now we need to reset this actually, because that is going to be bad. So let's think here. Actually, hold on. I can do a quick little bit of mental math here because it's just 10. So what that's actually saying is we're offsetting by 10 voxels, the scale of 10 voxels. So in this case, that's offsetting it by 10 times 0.08, which is 0.8. So what we can do is we can come over here and say the offset now is going to be 0.8 like this. We're going to say use world space units. And that should actually give us the exact same, expansion basically. Then we smooth it. Then we get back to this, which is going to be dilating, which in this case is not going to dilate at all because now this is not in world space units. So let's do this. Let's change this over to world space units, remove this -3. And we could actually set that to be something. Actually, I kind of like the way that looks now that I'm seeing that. That's kind of fun. Because I like these edges the way that they're going. So let's just leave that. I like that. Anyways, now we are working in world space units. So the good thing about world space units is that if I change the scale of the the VDB, like the resolution of it, it's not going to change the scaling that's going to be happening with those erosions and things like that. So let's now I can also change the Gaussian to do the same. So this, if I check this on, the filter radius should be, if I want it to be the same, should have been 1 unit, 1 voxel, which would have been 0.08. So let's just change it to that, 0.08. And I think that should be basically the exact same as it was. We've got this subtracting. Yeah, I kind of like that with the tubes like that. That's cool. Okay, so let's now change this to say 0.6. I don't know. It's going to take a second longer, but there we go. Okay, wasn't too bad. And really the only reason for doing this, like if I change this around a little, is just to get finer detail in these meshes, right? Because the amount of detail that we can get from these, the most is going to be based on the number of voxels, right? So anyways, you don't have to do that really, because I don't think that the best way of getting this look is to specifically use, or maybe even let's be more particular, maybe this look here. I think that if you want a look like this, that's kind of got that foamy look to it, I think the best way to do that is with a bunch of spheres, to be honest. Like, I think that's by far the best way of doing it. So for example, now we've got this kind of undulating surface, right? And really we'd probably want to go with a bunch of, points, spheres, things like that. Now you could just do points with P scale and then render them out that way in a render or whatever. But just something to kind of think about there. So, okay, so we've got this surface. Let's just name this so we know that we have it. Let's say null here. And we'll just say, we'll just say foam surface. I think that's a good name for this. And I don't think that's going to be the end of this. So, okay, so we've got this foam surface. What's going on up here? Just want to see what that is. Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, that's sort of neat. Got some like divots there and stuff, just because they're far away. Okay, so we've got all these holes cut out in this almost like beehive looking thing. Gosh, my wife has actually. I'm just remembering that my wife actually has this. I can't show her this. She'll freak out. She'll be like, I just want to crush it. She always says that with beehives, she wants to crush them. Not like to kill the bees, but just because the shapes are freaky to her. Anyways, okay, so what we should probably do here is use some sphere packing for this. And I think excuse me. Points from volume should work. Let's VDB to spheres, maybe. Yes. That's a good one too. No. Yeah. What am I doing? That's a great idea. That is a great idea. Don't want them to overlap. If I turn off overlapping. Yeah, like just a cool zillion. Yeah. Just like a zillion. So what I'm actually thinking here is I sort of wonder if it would be, I mean, already that's fun though. There's fun things happening. Fun things are happening. What I'm wondering is there is the is it this one? Sorry, I'm just trying to remember which one it is. This is sphere packing. I'm just curious here. Is this going to do the same thing? Sort of. Yep. Yep. This is working. Just curious. I think this is more or less the same. Honestly, I'm just gonna do this just for curiosity. I have a feeling that that's in there somewhere. This is just for curiosity. Don't just ignore everything in here. Don't worry about it if this freaks you out. Yeah, there it is. VDB to spheres. Grain size. Yeah, okay. So they're doing grain size, max radius. So it's really just this is in here. Interesting. Okay. I was just curious. That is in there. So cool. Oops. That's fine. So let's just do the same thing here. I figured it was more or less the same going on here. So let's say the smallest is going to be that size. And then more. And then, okay, so this is where we're going to be able to come up with some interesting things. Because here you can see that we're doing this sphere packing thing. Okay, I'm going to hide the tubes because we don't really want to see those maybe for right now. But we are getting into this. So let's do this. We've got our foam surface. Let's just do a convert VDB just so we can see what that surface looks like, just for reference. So we're going to convert this into a polygon. And there's our polygon, right? Our polygonal surface for that VDB that we're starting with, which is pretty fun looking. And we could maybe just add in a little bit of adaptivity there. Cool. So now we've got a little surface that we can look at. So if we do this and then go over to our spheres, we could probably get an idea for how closely we're sort of reaching this surface, right? So that's cool. Now, what I'm pretty sure is happening here is yep. So this point count is basically saying, what did I just do? I just went into an orthographic mode. That's really funny. Wait, what? What did I do? How did I, is it bad that I don't know how to get, oh, there we go. Oh, that's funny. I don't know if I've ever done that by accident before. Space G. Yeah, I went into ortho mode. That was really funny. Anyways, so what this is doing, the point count, is basically saying how many scattered points we're going to put through this volume. And then from there, we're going to try to find the best fitting options for these spheres, right? Within the minimum and maximum radius size. Now, in our case, we have no max radius, which I think we should probably have. Now, granted, if we change this to 100, that's going to make basically no difference. So let's change this to 0.1 just for kicks. Oh, okay. Well, that's too small. Okay. Okay, so the minimum radius was already too small, so that's good to know. Crazy small. So let's do the maximum spheres. We'll give it another lot. Give it a whole chunk here to get into. Because, right, what it was finding was these really big spheres that would be able to fill up a lot of this volume. And so that was part of what was really good for these. So the problem that we're going to run into here that I'm already noticing is that it's going to really slow down the viewport. So, um, just trying to think of any way that we could make this a little bit nicer. Because really we have 100,000 points. We really don't need to see the spheres for 100,000 spheres. So let me just think about this here. Could we do maybe an add? Delete the geometry, keep the points. Okay, so we've got all of our points here. And could we view this a different way? Yeah, that sort of works. That'll at least give us maybe some. All right, let me just try one more thing here. Lit spheres. What's that gonna do for us? Oh yeah, we're fine. Lit spheres. Lit spheres it is. Okay. So basically what I'm doing there is I'm taking off all the primitives so it doesn't have to draw these primitives for each and every one of those. So if I visualize this, it's going to be primitives. But if I visualize this, these are just lit spheres and the viewport is nice and fast. So we don't have to worry about that. Okay, so we've got all of our lit spheres here. That's great. Let's do this. And let's see. All right. Be forewarned. I'm going to hit save here. Be forewarned that this could really mess your computer up. So just do as I say, not as I do. Hopefully everything will be fine. Oh, my microphone might get goofy on this. Sorry. Currently, every one of my processors or my cores are going nuts. So. Okay, this was ill-advised. Let's just kill that for a second. Let's go back to this. Wait for it. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right. So let's do this. Let's go here. Let's recalculate. Recalculating. There we are. Yeah, exactly. That would make sense too. So if we wanted to, yeah. So what Crossfader is saying is that, which actually is maybe smart for this, actually, to think about this. Yeah, let's do that. Let's get rid of the bottom of this volume and just do the top part of it, because I don't know if you're actually going to see past. Set up my camera and call it. Yeah, I could do that for sure. I think I'm just going to clip it from the bottom for right now. I don't think there's really any reason to get too fancy with it. Let's do a VDB. Is there there's a clip. Is that going to do what I think it's going to do? Nice. Cool. Okay. That's nice. I don't think I've ever used that before. Cool. So we're going to do a VDB clip. Not enough sources to find. Does this only work for a volume? No, it can't. Okay. So, yeah, because it's looking for the geometry. Let's just do a box. Actually, what I'm going to do is do a bound, and then I can just limit this. So okay, perfect. So then what I can do is I can just change the lower padding and just slide this up. And that's pretty nice, especially if you came in like here. You're not going to really notice that. You're not going to get light that's going to go through past those spaces. So that's good. That'll be fine for right now. Might not have a veiled level set. Sure. Makes sense. Basically what it's saying is that because we're clipping yes, exactly. So there's the tubes, and then also the light's not going to go all the way down either. So there's all of that. There's lots of stuff that can be. Yeah, that shows how much idea I had about it. It's probably better to use with like density volumes. Now, what it's saying here is true, is that this is actually going to do some weird stuff. This is actually going to do some weird stuff. So try camera for the clip. Is there a camera in here? Oh, there is a camera. That's cool. Okay, so the reason that this is actually causing us some issues is that if you look at the bottom here, you can actually see that we're not getting proper like boundaries to this anymore, because we're basically now cutting the value. Like an SDF, it's wherever it's crossing the 0 value, right, is where you're seeing the surface. I'm not going to get too far into SDFs, but basically what we've done is we've cut it at a place where it wasn't expecting to now be at a 0 crossing again. So that's why this is actually acting funny. This would probably work better for like density volumes and things like that aren't going to worry about that. So yeah, we don't have a valid thing here anymore. So what we could do instead is use this same bound, take this out, do a VDB from polygons again here, which is fine. This is a nice quick operation. I am going to take this same thing here, I'm going to copy that parameter, paste the relative reference there. Now we've got another bounding box or a bounding volume. And then I'm going to do an SDF intersect, VDB SDF intersect. And that's basically just going to intersect where these two come between each other. So it's kind of the same thing. It's a VDB combine node set to SDF intersection. You can see right here. So it's basically the same thing as before, but now we actually have a valid bottom to this, so that we're going to actually have the right values for it. So yeah, so I think this is going to be better anyways to do it this way. But the clip is certainly neat. That could come in handy for other things in the future. Okay, so let's take a look at this VDB to spheres. I probably didn't want to visualize that one, but that's okay. We'll give it a second. Now, the thing is that this isn't going to go any faster right now because it's still going to be making the same number of points. It's just going to probably fill up that volume better. So let's take a look at this here. Sure enough, it seems like it's filling it up much, much better. So let's do a couple things here. Let's try to take this down a little bit, see how that affects this. Give it a second here. Okay. So it looks like we're not really running into an issue there per se of like having not enough points. I wonder if we actually go down to 100,000, if that's what that's gonna do. It's probably gonna give us less. It's gonna open up some holes here, I think. But yep, yeah, it definitely does. Oh, okay, there we go. That's what I was seeing. So there wasn't a p-scale attribute on it, so that's kind of interesting. Why would we not want a p-scale attribute on it? That's kind of weird. Okay, so let's go back to this. Let's go back to the 200,000 and see what that looks like. I was wondering why they were all the same size. I was like super confused with, but that's just me being kind of dumb and turning that off. Okay. Cool. What if we change this up? I'm just going to kind of play around with some of these values and see what we get to here. I think we can turn off minimum spheres. I don't think that's going to I don't think we're ever going to hit the minimum. I'd say the small ones are a little too small, so let's do maybe, no, actually, sorry. We'll leave that at 0.1. I actually do like kind of where those are. Let's just kind of mess around with this a little bit and see where we can go with it. I know that's going to take a lot longer. I just want to see if we can get a little denser and a little smaller. It's funny because the end result of these isn't going to be like, it's not going to be that heavy. It's just the computation of it that takes a little bit. Okay, I think it's done calculating, but I'll try to not talk while it's calculating because it's using up all of my computer's resources. So that's fun. We could possibly check that on. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I mean, so I think this is going to get us sort of into that realm of like what we want. I think it's going to be just all about kind of tweaking these values, getting them to remesh bubbles. What does that one do? I do know about that. Remesh bubbles. What is that? What is that looking for? Points with a p-scale attribute, collision surface with point normals. Oh, yeah, that probably wouldn't be good with this many points. Yeah, I feel like we might run into some problems there. Cool. Okay. Um okay. I mean, let's see. Let's give it a try, right? Live a little. Just live a little. All right, I'm going to take this. Oops, not like that. That's not what I meant to do. Take the polyfill. Go down like this. Put that in there. Let's maybe have a few less. Okay. Let's just send it. Only YOLO, right? Well, it's definitely not happy. I'll say that much. Feels like Houdini just went like this. Just compressed itself. Oh boy. It said points with a P scale, so I don't know. We'll see. See what it's gonna do. It remeshed my GUI. Yeah. I'm keeping a close eye on my RAM right now. I'm very scared about that. I wish you could all see my I wish you could see my um my little taskbar like display of my CPU. It's just it's going crazy. Hey, I did it. Oh man, we're back. I don't know how much of that. Oh man, that was brutal. Sorry about that. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. Man, that was nasty. I did a bad thing. All right, give me a second. Hello? Oh man, I totally blew up my computer. I think you can hear me, but can you see me? I can't even see myself moving on the thing. You just got audio, huh? That's so funny. Yep. Interesting. Interesting. Boy, I like. Wow. I really. Yeah, this is what I get for streaming on the same computer, I guess. But um yeah. Okay. Oh, that's funny. Hmm. Oh. I actually okay, well this is interesting. I just I think I crashed my Vulkan uh viewport. And so that means that I actually have to restart my computer to get that back. So, with that all being said, should probably just maybe call it there for the evening. I literally can't do anything else beyond what I have right here. I literally can't get any of these other things working. Does that work? Hello. Is anybody still there? Yes, sorry. I faded my audio off. I think that's gonna have to be the end of the stream. Because everything's crashed and no, dude, you don't have to worry about it. No, it's not your fault. I gave it a shot. I gave it a shot. I think maybe what we might do is maybe next week we'll try to play around with some more of the elements of that and keep going into it. Um, but yeah, I think this is gonna have to be it for right now. So yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining. Hopefully, you learned some fun little tricks there and tips, and we'll dive back into this next time. Next week, we'll go a little bit further with it. But no worries at all, Zach. I totally appreciate the idea. I was like, might as well try it. I mean, I've literally that was probably the hardest crash I've ever had on stream, so that was pretty fun. But anyways, thank you everybody for joining. And yeah, come back next week and we'll get into more stuff. And I won't use remesh bubbles for it. So, all right, everybody, have a good one. Have a good night. See y'all next week. Bye bye.